If you don't get vaccinated, you're antisocial. This is what the Dutch Prime Minister and Health Minister told us. You don't get vaccinated just for yourself, but also for others. You do it for all of society. That's what I said. Today, this turned out to be complete nonsense. In a COVID hearing in the European Parliament, one of the Pfizer directors just admitted to me, at the time of introduction, the vaccine had never been tested on stopping the transmission of the virus. This removes the entire legal basis for the COVID passport. The COVID passport that led to massive institutional discrimination as people lost access to essential parts of society. I find this to be shocking, even criminal. Please watch the video until the end.
Voor u, mevrouw Small, heb ik de volgende vraag waar ik een duidelijk antwoord op wil. And I will speak in English so there are no misunderstandings. Was the Pfizer COVID vaccine tested on stopping the transmission of the virus before it entered the market? If not, please say it clearly. If yes, are you willing to share the data with this committee? And I really want a straight answer, yes or no, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Regarding the question around, did we know about stopping immunisation before it's entered the market? No. We had to really move at the speed of science to really understand what is taking place in the market.
Millions of people worldwide felt forced to get vaccinated because of the myth that you do it for others. Now, this turned out to be a cheap lie.
Well, even the zombies in Brookline aren't defending Tony Fauci anymore. He's been unmasked as the sinister buffoon he is. But it wasn't that long ago he was in charge of everything. And when he was in charge of everything, he told us repeatedly that if you get the COVID vaccine, you're not going to get COVID, period. We know that. And we're quoting. You become a dead end for the virus, said Tony Fauci. And so widely accepted was that statement that Twitter banned anyone who disagreed with it or even questioned it as part of its COVID misinformation policy. But it soon became clear that that itself was misinformation because, of course, you can get COVID and pass it on if you've had the shot. And in fact, that shouldn't be surprising because Pfizer, which made the vaccine, never even tested to see if it prevented the transmission of COVID. What? You'd think they would know that since Tony Fauci and everyone in the U.S. government and everyone at your kid's school and everyone on television and Morning Joe and all the rest of them knew for a fact, but Pfizer didn't even know. And we know that because Pfizer executive Janine Small answered questions on Monday at the European Parliament, and here's how it went.
And I will speak in English so there are no misunderstandings.
Did we know about stopping immunisation before it's entered the market? No. We had to really move at the speed of science.
Oh, the speed of science! That's the speed at which you're moving too fast to do science. And you just sort of hope for the best and yell at anyone who disagrees with your preferred and hoped for outcome. The speed of science.
For the first time, Pfizer admitted that the vaccine was not tested on stopping the transmission of the virus when it entered the market. And this has massive implications. Governments pushed millions of people worldwide to get vaccinated by telling them to do it for your grandmother. Perfectly healthy young people into taking this jab using false arguments. And even worse, many governments, including mine, actually introduced so-called COVID passports, all in the name of public health. Many people lost their job, their livelihood, their business, because they stood by their principles. Austria even had a lockdown for the unvaccinated because of this reason. The government literally imprisoned people within their own homes. All of this was based on the idea that vaccination helps prevent the spread of the virus. But this has now proven to be a big lie. Even the president of for International Development Market of Pfizer now admits that there was no scientific basis to say vaccination would stop the transmission of the virus. And I find this one of the biggest scandals of our time. The politicians responsible for this will be angry that people are looking back at this time, but I won't forget what they did to millions of people.
And by the way, Pfizer knew this. None of its executives bothered to correct these politicians, and yet no Pfizer executive has been charged with the crime they committed, which is pretty unbelievable. I wish we had more politicians like you in Washington Rob Rose, thank you for coming on tonight.
Well, last week, if you were lucky enough to be watching this show, you were among the very first people in Australia to see an amazing clip from Europe. One which turned the whole concept of vaccine mandates and vaccine passports upside down on its head. The whole idea that we should be taking vaccines to protect other people was turned upside down. And it was during the questioning of senior Pfizer executive Janine Small that the Dutch Conservative member of the European Parliament, Rob Roos, asked the most critical and pertinent question, and the response was staggering. Here it is. Have a look again.
Regarding the question around did we know about stopping humanisation before it's entered the market? No. We had to really move at the speed of science.
The speed of science, honestly. In that clip, the basis for which all the vaccine mandates here in Australia, certainly, and around the world, and the subsequent consequences of those vaccine passports, all the disruption, all the dramas, all the lies ruined and turned upside down, was thrown out the window. Rob, you've used a phrase that I've been using a lot over the past few months, the abuse of power. And for me, that is what the absolute pivot of this is all about. And I agree with you. We've seen a lot of people coming out and saying, oh, well, there was no need. They never claimed that they had tested for transmission or tested for immunisation beforehand, so therefore there's nothing in this story. It's complete rubbish, because as you have put your finger on, the point is our politicians led us to believe, in fact, they insisted at every level, whether it was Anthony Fauci in the States, whether it was our own politicians here in Australia, at every level, our health bureaucrats insisted that the vaccines prevented transmission, and this was the rationale for mandatory vaccinations, which in this country, and I'm sure in Holland as well and other places, many people lost their jobs. Many people are still out of work. Many people are still had their lives turned upside down and destroyed because they insisted to us that it did stop transmission. This isn't a problem with Pfizer. As you say, Rob, this is absolutely about the abuse of power by politicians who are either too stupid or too lazy or too corrupt to actually check out the facts, and they were prepared to abuse their power. What happens next, Rob? What's going to happen next?
That's a very good question. What should happen, in my opinion, is that politicians are held accountable. This has been the most damaging violation of fundamental rights in at least decades. The impact is lasting.
Rob Roos, Conservative member, Dutch member of the European Parliament, the work you have done is phenomenal. You belong in the history books for what you are doing, and Australians who have suffered under the most grotesque abuses of power say thank you. Keep up the great work, Rob, and I hope we get to speak to you again, but keep up that great work in the European Parliament that you are doing.
Just one thing first. Joe Biden called it a pandemic of the unvaccinated. Andrew Neil, formerly of this parish, spoke of punishing the unvaccinated. Jeremy Vine spoke figuratively of holding people down and forcibly jabbing them. Oddly, the smiling fascist Justin Trudeau of Canada called the unvaccinated racist. But as a spokesperson from Pfizer admitted in the Dutch Parliament this week, the vaccine was never tested for transmission, in other words, stopping you giving COVID to others. So what the authorities told us about stopping the spread with a jab was a total lie. Take it to protect Granny, a historic falsehood. Whilst safe for most, though we can't be sure, we don't have long-term data, large numbers of people around the world have suffered severe side effects, and some, including former BBC presenter Lisa Shaw, have died. Lisa, a healthy woman in her 40s, here pictured with her husband Gareth. She statistically did not need the jab, but based upon the idea that somehow she was helping others, she took one for the team. She's gone now. Her husband, a widower, her young son without his mummy. The conspiracy theorists, the Tin Hat Brigade, the so-called anti-vaxxers, who were no such thing but simply wanted personal choice, were right all along. For the record, I'm triple jabbed. But did I need it? You tell me. We will never forget the politicians, the corporations, and the high-profile celebrities and TV doctors who needlessly coerced us into having the vaccine. They've got blood on their hands. Never forgive, never forget, and never again.